Kenyans used to call at 60 shillings per minute on the mobile phone and $6 to make a call to UK or to US. So it was very expensive, and I knew if we had the link, we could lower the cost of calling and actually bring in more people to afford telephony in this country.
Everybody in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania and a bit of our neighbors were using satellite connectivity to get to the internet. And that internet access via satellite was, one, very expensive, and two, it had a lot of latency.
Where there is one cable, and there was one cable in West Africa for many years called SAT3, the pricing of cable capacity sat just below satellite capacity. So satellite capacity was sitting at $3,000 a megabit, and cable capacity sat at $2,000 something a megabit for literally a decade. So the question then is, how do you fix the problem?
We had an initiative before Teams called Easy. They had been meeting for 5 years, and it was very difficult to manage because some countries would attend but they didn't have the resources to invest in it. It was apparent that it was not going to work.
So it was at that point that we started wondering and thinking to ourselves, now that Easy does not look like it's coming in a hurry, what are we going to do? We started exploring the possibility of building a cable for East Africa.
For us, it was very difficult to raise like 80 billion to invest in it. We consulted with various operators if they could invest in it, getting practically all the operators in the country.
The business model that we developed was where we were going to forward finance and then later on to offload it to the private sector.
And so it worked because all of the competitors were part of the Teams cable. And what we agreed on as a financial structure for the cable was that instead of getting a financial return out of your investment in the cable, what you got was a share of the capacity on the cable.
It was a very unique model which nobody had ever attempted to do.
To this day, it's working beautifully, it's working very well. What happened, of course, is following the success of Teams, other fiber optic cables were built. The fact that we involved the private sector, the users of the fiber, is one of the factors that made it a success.
What we need to learn from Teams is not just the capacity, the broadband capacity, but a model that can now be replicated in other sectors where you have players competing but have invested in the same infrastructure.
It's very important for the ICT industry in Kenya to be able to have access to good capacity and at a good price. We are now interconnected with Google in Nairobi and Mombasa. We are also connected with Google in London. We've partnered with Akamai to localize the traffic from the Akamai network.
We're moving from an area where physical positioning in the world is no longer relevant, and I think governments all around the world are starting to recognize very, very critically that technology is the biggest single enabler that they have in order to grow their own world economies.